film. I saw it in German first, but it was the one where they go and get the whales and bring them back. And they're on the bus talking to the marine biologist from Monterey. And at that point, Spock says a few things, and Kirk looks at her and he says he did too much LDS when he was in college. So that's where I got that joke. All my jokes, they come from somewhere. But this is my favorite book on Descartes. And A.C. Grayling is terrific. He's on my list, by the way, if you're interested in him. But let's talk about the books that you're supposed to be familiar with of Descartes when you take an Intro to Philosophy course. Almost everybody, at least used to be, so you could still do this. You could read the Meditations, which are online, so you don't have to go buy them. And the Meditations are supposed to be read one day at a time. There's like 6 different meditations. And it starts off with universal doubt. Have doubt about everything. I can doubt everything. Except, it turns out that the only thing you can't doubt is that you exist.
Kind of reminds me of how Plotinus did his stuff, where there'll be certain points where he basically like encourages you to sort of reflect on what you're reading before proceeding forward.
Well, and by the way, the book that he wrote that is the one where you get that expression, which is what accomplished my Dudism. My Dudism was cogito ergo sum, which I looked at you as, thinking you would know, but everybody knows what cogito ergo sum means. No, apparently not. Cogito is I think in Latin. Ergo, we use that in English, is like thus. Sum is Latin for I am, right? So cogito ergo sum. Remember that expression, right? Because if you're at a cocktail party and someone says, "Oh, Descartes, did you ever read Descartes?" You look at them and you go, "Cogito ergo sum," and that means yes. And they're like, "Whoa, you're a genius too, like me." You know how they think. People are like that. Right? And by the way, with Thomas Hobbes, the expression is "life is nasty, brutish, and short." Yes?
I know that one.
You knew that one.
I know that one.
Yeah, that's good. And it's in English, by the way. By the way, Thomas Hobbes is the first philosopher, because we didn't read Francis Bacon, but Thomas Hobbes is the first to write in English. So when we read Thomas Hobbes, you suddenly think, what the heck is this crap? Because he's writing in Elizabethan type English instead of what we think of as contemporary English. If you're reading the other philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, it sounds like good English because, of course, the translators aren't giving you Elizabethan English in their translation. So that's kind of fun. But in the Discourse on the Method, chapter 4, let's see if I can quick get there. Oh. Anybody see it? Where is it? Let's make it bigger. I'm still in chapter 4. Did I make it go away? Here we go. There it is. So actually, this was written in Latin as well as in French. He never wrote it in English. This is a translation. But in any case, he says, "I think, therefore I am. I observe that this truth. I think, therefore I am." So this is his expression of that. And by the way, it's not actually brand new at Descartes' time. He would have read Augustine's Confessions. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, is this going to be a crappy thing? Probably. Oh. Well, let me just quick say, that Augustine gives us a paragraph where he says basically there's three things that I know for sure. First is that I exist. How do I know? Well, if someone asks me, how do you know you exist? I have to know that I exist in order to question whether or not I exist. So therefore, I know for sure that I exist. The second thing he knows for sure is, I love knowing that I know that I exist. And the third thing that he knows is that, maybe that was the third thing. I forget. But there's three things, and it works out to be like a trinity. So it's like what we have in common with God. And by the way, notice I had this one pulled up. This is, everyone knows the creation of Adam, right? From Michelangelo's, Sistine, the 16th chapel, right? Pope the 16th, that, he built it for. He didn't build it. It was already there. It was already named in honor of the 16th. Leo the 16th? I don't remember which one. But in any case, Julius wants it painted. And Michelangelo paints it, and everyone knows he ends up painting. My parents even got to see it, which was neat. But they didn't see it as well as I could see it because I use the internet. And when they went to see it in person, there was scaffolding over part of it because it was being repaired. And as a result, they were upset because they couldn't see the whole thing. But also, you can't, it's way the heck up there. If you're using the internet, you can see it right up close. Plus, you get to see fascinating little studies that point out that, this is God creating Adam, right? If you look at this image, go away. You look at this image here, and you realize the shape of the brain. What you're actually looking at is Michelangelo giving us the image that we're created in the image of God, and the image that he's giving us of God is intellect, our brain, right? So it's kind of a neat thing. If you think, how did God create us? Is God a human being sitting on a throne in space? No. But intelligence is apparently the basic idea. But Descartes takes Augustine's paragraph and turns it into 6 days worth of reading. And so the very first thing that Descartes has to do, and the reason he's doing this is because by going to school where he was, he had people that were arguing for the nominalist position, which we saw with William of Ockham, right? So only physical objects exist, and the Platonic position, Duns Scotus, for example, that universals are real, they really exist. And Aquinas actually solved that problem by pointing out that there's spiritual substance. Not sure how that helps everybody solve that problem. But he grew up with teachers who didn't agree with one another, and so his whole generation is basically all concerned about how to be sure of anything. And he discovers that you can build knowledge on a firm basis, like St. Augustine 1,000 years earlier, and basically doubt everything you could possibly doubt, universal doubt, right? And when you get into that mode, you'll discover that at a certain point, you can't doubt any further that you exist. Although he famously doesn't believe his body is proved to exist, only his mind. Only his mind exists. Further, he assumes that the devil is trying to confuse him and fool him into thinking things that are not true. But the thing is, the devil can't convince him that he doesn't exist, because in order for him to be doubting, he must exist. So I think, therefore I am. There's all kinds of jokes about this. By the way, you do have to study Descartes before you die. You've all heard you have to put Descartes before De Hearst. I think I did make that joke up, actually.
Yeah?
Now that one, and you know, the chicken and the egg joke, I think I found the solution to that. Well, the rooster has to come first.
Sorry.
Actually,
Look,
I'm
I
not sorry. I
appreciate
just
the
have to
attempt.
say I'm sorry in order to, you know, try to avoid penalty fees. Okay, so now that he's absolutely convinced he's got a foundation for all knowledge, I think therefore I am, I must exist. How do you move on to the next step? And this is kind of intriguing. He decides that God is perfect. How could he have gotten that idea of perfection? Because he's a finite, imperfect mind. And in order for him to have gotten the idea that God was perfect, it could only have come from a cause that was greater than the effect. The cause is greater than the effect. In other words, the idea that God is perfect could only have come from God being perfect. And so therefore, God must exist. So this is famously Descartes' version of the ontological argument. God being perfect, therefore God must exist. I couldn't have thought of it myself, so therefore it must have come from God. And that being the case, everything that's clear and distinct, even in French, clair et distinct, clear and distinct, I know to be true. So what kinds of things are clear and distinct? Not wax, not any of my physical sensations or my sight. The only things that he ends up discovering are clear and distinct and must be true are mathematical. 2 plus 2 equals 4, etc. Things of that sort. So mathematics is the science on which everything else must be built for Descartes, not church dogma.
That's more Pythagorean.
Ooh, I could doubt all of that stuff. The miracles and things and so on. Remember, he can even doubt that he has a body. Not sure of it, because everything that he thinks and is going on in his mind is in his mind. By the way, we agree with this today. And at least, remember, we've got lots of contexts, different models. Well, in the context that he's speaking of, that we can only, our whole experience is in our mind. We accept this as actually true today in the context in which you're self, evaluating. The way things look to you or the way things look to you, right? The way things feel to you or the way things feel to you, right? You might not be sharing that with other people. Taste things differently, they see things differently, they feel things differently, etc. Right? I mean, most people can't believe my wife stayed married to me for 51 years, but she did. Obviously, she sees something in me that other people don't. Our 51st anniversary was Saturday.
How
Pardon?
was it?
I bought her a new book.
Did she
Was
like
it better than
Did
50?
you like it? Did you get
No,
shot every
50,
year?
50 for some reason is a much bigger celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, 51 is like, man. You did it, another year. Okay.